Have you ever had a sense that you're being talked about behind your back, but you just couldn't prove it? Well, thanks to last week's column, where I wrote about how I'd revisited my old house and how relieved I was that I had no regrets about selling it, I got a very interesting email from another former neighbor. She said there was something that, now I'd left, she could share with me. I had fully renovated that house when I lived there and, as it was detached, I didn't have any complaints from my neighbors on either side regarding the work I was having done. In fact, they were and are absolute gems, better neighbors you really could not find. However, in two houses across the road, but not actually facing me, lived two different women who I'd always knew had a problem with me. Now, thanks to this tip-off, I had proof that the beef ran deep. It turns out they started a WhatsApp group and invited all the residents of the street, everyone apart from me. And I'd lived there for 7 years. In this WhatsApp group they would share every tidbit of information about what was going on at my house or, shock horror, when I was in the papers promoting my books. They would comment on my inappropriate outfits and my revolving door of ever-changing boyfriends, which is particularly hilarious as I only went out with 2 different men the whole time I lived there, which I didn't know was a crime. Anyway, these women always objected to anything that I did to the house, so it really shouldn't have come as a surprise to find that I'd been the subject of this secret sniping. But what irritated me about discovering it was the sheer two-facedness of them. We had rarely spoken other than run-ins when they would stand outside the house, shout at the builders, yes, one of them really did do that, whilst the other complained that changing the shape of my roof was disturbing the view from her bedroom window. Things had got a little heated at that time, and I do recall saying that if she and her husband, who was equally vocal at complaining, had nothing better to do when they were in their bedroom together than stare at my house, then perhaps they had bigger problems to address. So it's fair to say that we got off to a bumpy start as neighbors, and then ignored each other. I don't know what they called me behind closed doors, I can only imagine, but I referred to them as Pudding Bowl 1 and Pudding Bowl 2 because they both had bizarre Anne Widdecombe meets Rose West haircuts, never wore a stitch of makeup, were only ever in flat shoes, and I never once saw them in anything more glamorous than a cardi. If I'm honest, I always thought it was a touch of the green-eyed glamour monster. However, even after such a terrible start, once the whole of the UK united during Clap for Carers and we found ourselves face to face in the street with nowhere to hide, not even the biggest pot and pan to bang can give you anonymity when you're in that close proximity, we started talking. Even getting on. But it turns out during that whole last 2 years we were smiling, waving or having the odd chit-chat when our paths crossed, where they even commented on the fact that they thought the house looked great and they regretted objecting. It turns out they were slagging me rotten in their secret WhatsApp group. Even celebrated my exit from the street. So I'm now doubly happy to have moved on and delighted that this column will no doubt make an appearance on their sneaky little phones. As I know you'll be reading this, ladies, that dress that I wore for the photo shoot to promote my latest book, that best-selling one that's been translated into 7 languages, the one that you questioned whether I was even wearing knickers, I can confirm, I was wearing something called a G-string, perhaps you've never heard of them. Happy curtain twitching, ladies, in your granny pants. Ciao ciao. Read more of Melanie Blake's shocking confrontation with the man who broke her heart. Here's what you may have missed from the jaw-dropping 4-parter that has notebook readers gripped. Part 1, He left me at the altar 5 years ago, and then this week got in touch. Part 2, my ex finally revealed why he jilted me on our wedding day. I wasn't expecting that. Part 3, my ex dropped whopping sex bombshell 5 years after leaving me at the altar. Part 4, 5 years after my ex left me at altar, I finally learned truth behind his vicious lie. More Melanie Blake. Extinction Rebellion and Insulate Britain. Crusties are selfish attention seekers. Dear Mel, am accidentally having full-blown affair with best friend's husband. Turns out my famous friend's marriage to sex best husband is money-making sham. Friend's famous husband shocked me with sexual messages. Do I fess up and tell her? I love a bad boy, but if he breaks your bed, he'll probably break your heart. That sex is not worth putting up with, you'll be stuck with it for the rest of your life. £25,000 shopping splurges made me feel like Julia Roberts, but now I've changed. I caught my builders slacking off to ogle the size 8 Estonian blonde neighbor. The bed I spent so many steamy nights in has gone. It's time to move on from lying ex to every married lech. You'll send your messages to your wives. You've been warned. William and Harry will have to mend their family bond naturally. You can't force it. I went to the University of Life, which is not an education that's accepted by troughs. One day we will look at Love Island and horror-like shows from the 70s. Famous showbiz client made sickening suicide note request if I took my own life.